Hi class, today we are going to have a lesson that will be based on something called traits, inherited traits, and learned behaviors. Can anyone tell me what they think a trait means? Good. What do you think an inherited trait means? Awesome. When I say that an animal is showing us a learned behavior skill, what do you think that means? Great. Well, class, today we will be going over a couple of different things such as trait, an inherited trait, and learned behaviors in plants and animals. I will play a video that is going to go over the details of the inherited traits, and learned behaviors in animals and plants, so that way you can get a better understanding of exactly what that means. Great, now that we have seen the video, that gives us a lot more information. Did you learn anything else with a trait as far as what a trait means? Great, what about an inherited trait? Did anybody learn anything about that? Awesome. Well, we saw in the video that the definition of a trait was a characteristic that one possesses, like freckles or blue eyes. We learned what inherited trait was. Can anyone give me an example of an inherited trait? Yes, very good. I have brown hair, which is an inherited trait from my parents because they also have brown hair. So an inherited trait means that it is a trait that is passed down from someone's parents. This could be your mom or your dad or the parents of animals. We also covered what a learned behavior is. Does anyone remember what a learned behavior is? Yes, so a learned behavior is a behavior that is learned as the result of an experience. For instance, when a bear goes into hibernation in the winter, he can tell as the weather changes that he needs to prepare to find somewhere safe to sleep for a while. He does this because it is a pattern that he has learned when to prepare. So every year the bear goes into hibernation, and he knows this because he does it every single year, so he follows that pattern. It's just like an everyday pattern that you do. When you go and eat a bowl of cereal, you'll more than likely grab a spoon to eat that bowl of cereal, and you know that because it's a learned behavior. So I have a book, and it's titled, Why is My Dog Bigger Than Your Dog? And I'm going to read that book to you now. What did y'all think of the book? Did it go over some of the traits that we have been talking about? What traits did you notice? Did you see anything that also showed learned behavior in this book? Students will also bring their knowledge from their previous grade level about what they learned inherited traits of plants and animals as well as learned behaviors were. Students will know the difference between inherited traits and traits as well as learned behaviors. Okay, class, now we are going to explore. So we will be going out to take a mini field trip outside, and we're going to see if there are any bugs or plants that you see that have any inherited traits or learned behavior. Class, do you see the flowers that are growing on the side of the building? What color are they? Do you think that color could be an inherited trait of a plant? Is there anything out here that we could look at as an inherited trait or a learned behavior? Great. Remember all the things that you have seen out here, and next time you are on a walk, look for things that you could connect this to. When you're walking up to your porch, when you get home from school, if you have a flower garden, on the front of your house, look and see what kind of plants you have on there. Do you think that they have an inherited trait? For instance, roses. If I was to grow roses in my front yard, they're probably going to be red or pink or yellow because those are inherited traits. Now we will be doing an activity together on the board. Everyone come and sit on the carpet. I have pictures of a litter of puppies and their parents that we are going to pass around so that everyone can see. This is a picture of a mom and a dad with their baby puppies. Does anyone think that some of these puppies look like the mom? What about the dad? Does it seem that maybe they have some traits from both their mom and their dad? So if we look over this picture, we can see that the dad has gray and black and white fur on him, but on the top he has gray and black. And the mom on this side of the picture has brown and a light tan. Yeah, so do you see some of the puppies down here? We have this one. Who do you think this one looks more like? He's got black fur. Does the mom have black fur? No, yeah, the dad does. So he got an inherited trait from his dad. And we can see all the different colors that they have. Some of them have a light brown, some of them have a light gray. They all have the same nose. What about their ears and the rest of their fur or their paws? So these are some things that we're going to take a look at, and we can tell what inherited traits are. So I want everyone to grab your journals because we are going to chart some of the inherited traits that we see in the puppies. You're going to make a chart with 3 sections, and you're going to label them Puppy 1, Puppy 2, and Puppy 3. I'm going to write Mom and Dad on the board, so together we will list the traits that we see on Mom and the traits that we see on Dad. And then you will take information from the board to write some traits that you think each puppy may have inherited from their parents. So if Mom has brown on the top of her fur, maybe Puppy 1 will have brown on the top of her fur. So go ahead and get your journals out and start writing what you think Puppy 1, 2, and 3, and you can pick any of these puppies on here, 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to write what their inherited traits are. During the review of the answers, I will make sure to ask questions our students if they understand how we came to the conclusion of the answers. Class, does everyone understand how we decided on these answers? Is there anyone that has any questions? So can anybody tell me what an inherited trait of an animal is? What is an example of an inherited trait on a plant? Remember, we just talked about that. Do you have a pet at home? Good. Does your pet have a learned behavior? For instance, if you tell your dog to sit, does he sit? Yes, that's an example of learned behavior. How many students in here have dogs? How many of them sit when you tell them to sit? Great. That is an inherited behavior. What was the example of an inherited or a learned behavior that we talked about with a bear? Yes, very good. They know when to go into hibernation. Okay, students, so I want to take a moment to just have a little discussion on what your thoughts are on the video and the charts that were made. Great. So if we go back to the video that we watched earlier, what did you take out of that? Did you learn anything new on that? Great. And when we made the charts, you were able to really sit there and look at details from the mom and the dad to see maybe what the puppies inherited from them, right? Great. So can anybody tell me what the difference is between a trait and an inherited trait? Yes, an inherited trait is passed down genetically from one generation to the next, while non-inherited traits are usually associated with a learned behavior. When we hear the word trait and inherited trait, we know that there is a difference, but research may prove later that these traits may be related in some way or another. A learned behavior is something that is learned over time through experience. When we repeatedly do something, for example, when we ride a bike, we know that we need to pedal in order to make the bike move so that we are able to ride it. Does everyone understand these concepts that we just reviewed? Great. As we went over the video and making our charts, we discussed what these meanings are. We will now look at this anchor chart that I have put up on the board that will give us more examples and show the definitions once more on trait, inherited trait, and learned behavior. The anchor chart shows examples of an inherited trait. What is an inherited trait that you have? Allow different students to answer. Great. Have you ever seen a zebra at the zoo? What is one inherited trait that you think a zebra has? Yes, a zebra has stripes. Can anyone give me examples of other inherited traits that an animal might have? What about a plant? What is an inherited trait that a plant might have? Great. A plant such as a rose, for instance, can have the inherited trait of color. A red rose is red, a yellow rose is yellow. Does anyone here have a pet dog? Great. What are some tricks that you have taught your dog? Is there anyone that has taught your dog to roll over? Well, that is an example of a learned behavior. When you taught your dog to respond, you say roll over, and they learn this trick from repetition and a continued experience. This is That same thing with animals and plants. When you continue to do something because you are used to doing this over and over, then you adapt to this learned behavior from experience, like riding a bike. What are some of the genetics that you have? Can anyone tell me one learned behavior that you have seen? Does anyone in class have a unique inherited trait? Great. So fun fact, class, really quick. My daughter actually has a very unique inherited trait. She has webbed toes. So her father actually has webbed toes, and she inherited that from her father. So everybody has 5 toes, and on her, 2 of her toes are actually stuck together halfway up, and he has the exact same thing. So that's one example of an inherited trait. Awesome. So we are going to work on an activity in which I am going to put a picture of a mom alien and a dad alien on the Elmo, and we are going to draw a picture in our journals of a little alien based on the traits that we see from the mother and father. Pay attention to the characteristics on the alien parents. You can make your alien any way that you want, but keep in mind that it has to include the inherited traits from the parents. So here is a dad alien. Here is a mom alien. So remember, class, you are going to take traits from the dad alien and traits from the mom alien, and you're going to put them together, and you are going to make a baby alien. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then when we are done, we're going to go around the class and we're going to share. So just make sure that you use those traits from your mom and your dad alien. I'm also going to give you a worksheet that you can take home, and for fun, you can do this with a picture of your mom and your dad, and you can compare what traits you actually got from your mom or from your dad. So when we go home, I just want y'all to remember that traits and learned behaviors are something that we see every day, and maybe just not think about it. We are around our family all of the time, whether it is our parents, grandparents, siblings, or kids. You can make a connection with the knowledge that you've learned from today's lesson in combination with your background knowledge that you already knew about this to make a hypothesis of what trait you might hand down to your kids. So teacher will take a formative assessment by listening to the students' responses, discussions, and explanations of their observations throughout the lesson. Observations will be recorded throughout the lesson as teacher listens to the responses throughout the classroom discussions. Teacher will go over the definitions one last time to make sure that students have a clear understanding of what was discussed in the class. The summative assessment, students will complete a Venn diagram in order to show that they understand what we learned. Each student will take out their journal drawing the 2 main circles, with one labeled inherited traits and the other labeled learned behavior. I will draw this as an example on the board. On their own, they will complete the diagram labeling 5 items and examples off of each main circle. The teacher will grade based off of the complete number of circles that are filled out. In closure, thank you, class, for participating in today's lesson, and I hope that you enjoyed it. When you go home today, you can talk to your parents about inherited traits and see if there are any that you have from either parent. Okay, class, we will be moving on to the next lesson.